Yu-Gi-Oh has always had Egyptian theming, albeit somewhat superficial, but what really comes as a surprise is that we never had a proper mummy archetype. That isn't to say we never gotten any mummy monsters or even halfway coherent strategies, but I think actually seeing a lot of these and knowing that they exist would come as a surprise to most people. And as the original series continued to build and the new support taps into that nostalgia, we're getting more and more cards inspired by Egyptian mythology. So for a monster as iconic as a mummy, I'm surprised that there's never been a designated archetype, and what we did get was barely playable. So the first bunch of monsters I want to talk about are the flip mummies. These are a group of zombie monsters that have the ability to flip themselves face down. Wandering Mummy seems to be the core, as when it flips itself face down, it shuffles all other face down monsters. Giant Axe Mummy is a level 5 monster that destroys a monster that attacks it with attack less than its defense. So you can see that the purpose of these two are to have both on the field, shuffle them, and then hope your opponent attacks a big guy by accident. There's also Royal Keeper. While not a mummy in name like the others, it still is a zombie monster with the right theming that can also flip itself face down. This one just gains attack and defense the turn it gets flipped face up. While there are only 3 monsters that clearly go together, you could group in Poison Mummy. This one is a hard flip effect monster that burns for 500, as well as Deslakuta, a classic stall draw engine. In concept, these 5 monsters could be a deck that sorta works, especially when you add in other zombie support cards, but back then it wasn't too powerful, and today it is even worse. I do at least want to mention that some of those old support cards do fit into the theme, like Call of the Mummy and Pyramid Turtle. Otherwise, I think that the playstyle is actually great when it comes to the theme, because it plays on the trope of a mummy coming to life and attacking intrepid explorers once they open up the sarcophagus. Flip monsters are kind of the perfect way to execute that idea, and should this be recycled in something like more support later down the road or a complete reboot, flip monsters aren't bad, but in the modern day it really takes something big to make a difference. We've had Subterror a few years ago, and then there's also the newly revealed Mimighoul, which seems like a step in the right direction. The last monster that is a mummy in name is Regenerating Mummy. While sporting a respectable 1800 attack, its effect is a bit underwhelming, only being able to return to your hand when it's sent to the graveyard by your opponent. Oh, and I guess Ghost Trick Mummy is there too, but again, with Ghost Tricks, there's one for just about every famous monster. Now, there are some other monsters that I would categorize in the same family, even though they don't have mummy in their name. Endless Decay is pretty cool with a way to special summon itself very easily and gain some big attack points. Devouring Sarcophagus has an interesting effect that can take control of the opponent's monsters and turn them into zombies. This one is a pretty recent card, but I love the idea behind it, even if it is just a one-off monster rather than an archetype on its own. But now, it's time to talk about the ruler we've all been waiting for, Spirit of the Pharaoh. This is a level 6 monster with 2500 attack and an alright effect. I think the look of this monster is great, and while not being called a mummy, a zombie-type pharaoh is basically just that. Though we really need to bring up that janky summoning condition. So this monster can only be special summoned through the effect of the first sarcophagus. This is a continuous trap that once during your opponent's end phase allows you to activate a copy of either the second or third sarcophagus directly from your deck. These are continuous spells with no effect other than that they can only be activated through the effect of the first sarcophagus. Yeah, it's gonna be one of those decks. Though weirdly enough, I guess it's a little better than Spirit Board because there are fewer cards, but I mean that one ended up getting support too later on. But the point is that once you have all 3 on your field, you can send them all to the graveyard in order to special summon Spirit of the Pharaoh. While I totally get the idea and I'm honestly a fan, it is just way too slow. The way that things work, you will only get your boss monster by the end of turn 4 at the very soonest. That sounds fair when it comes to older Yu-Gi-Oh, but you have to realize just how vulnerable the setup is during those turns. The funny thing is that the new Horus cards basically took this idea of everything revolving around a continuous sarcophagus on the field, except for the fact that, it's actually really good and has a lot more going on. Also, they have only 1 sarcophagus to worry about and a whole deck of monsters that reach an end board. Let's say that you did pull off this summon and got your Spirit of the Pharaoh. It would then allow you to summon up to 4 level 2 or lower normal zombie monsters from your graveyard. Yeah, that isn't really all that great a payoff. What you're meant to do is summon Pharaoh's Servant and Pharaonic Protector. These aren't anything too special, but they're definitely meant to go with Spirit of the Pharaoh when it comes to their flavor text. In modern Yu-Gi-Oh, I guess you could then use them for material to link summon some other things, I guess? But back in older Yu-Gi-Oh, it really just gave you some more bodies on the field, and that's just about it. They aren't even big bodies. And unfortunately, that's about all we got when it comes to the mummy monsters in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! I would have thought there would be a bit more than what we actually got, or that some of the older ones would have gotten retrains or something else by now, but hopefully that's something that happens in the future. The way I see it, you could either make something completely new, adapt the flip effect monsters, or create a retrain of the Spirit of the Pharaoh. As I mentioned, flip effect monsters haven't completely been forgotten about, and I love the idea in terms of the theming, but I'm just not sure how likely it would be. I think the last idea of updating the Spirit of the Pharaoh with retrains is most likely to happen. While not not notably powerful, it's still kind of a fan favorite monster, albeit extremely niche. You could still keep the idea of the sarcophagus being a way to summon it, but take note from Horus and use only one, or at least give some better effects to the additional sarcophagus to make them a bit more useful. Also, retraining the servants to gain effects that allow you to better facilitate getting the important cards that you need into the hand or onto the field would be a great idea, and some negation and protection effects are never a bad idea for creating a boss monster. Honestly, with how the original Spirit was only a level 6, I could see a new monster jumping straight to level 8 and becoming the new powerhouse without totally stepping on the original. But that was just a little dive into the ancient tombs to find the mummy monsters long forgotten in modern day. Personally, I love the idea. I was always a fan of Poison Mummy despite the fact that it never really did anything all that useful, but the artwork of this card was enough to get me interested. So let me know what you think about all the monsters we brought up today and what you would like to see in the future. Anyway, this is GatorX, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you all later.